All right, so start recording. There we go. And I just want to show you guys more UV unwrapping today, right? Spend some time till about 9:25 or so doing this, and then I'll give you guys maybe even 9:20. I don't think I need that much time to do these things. Then give you guys roughly about a half hour, 25 minutes of asynchronous. And like I said, we'll come back 5 minutes before the end of class. But in this case, we want to go to UV editing, right? So we go to the UV editing menu here. And in this case, I don't really even need the text tools yet for this one. Although I'll show you one of the things you could do with it. But remember, we're at this point, and if I want, for this view, I can go here and I can turn backface culling on just so we can kind of see that. Remember, that's just in that little V that points down, kind of in the display modes area. You just turn backface culling on, let you kind of see through the mesh. This is our room, so I'll go to the green triangle, right? And we can go to UV maps there, and I'll just double click on that to call it room, right? So there's already kind of UVs there, and it's just a question of naming the map sometimes. So that should be good there. One of the things that's cool about text tools, and you'll notice, and I've pointed this out before, it never hurts to point it out again, you'll notice there are these kind of little V's kind of on their side pointing to the left. A lot of viewports actually have them. So if I click on this little V, it's kind of right next to the outliner stuff, right? Right in between the kind of XYZ viewport view stuff. If I click on this V, it opens this up, right? And if you want to close it down, you just kind of drag it in until it closes, right? And you can drag it back out. So you can kind of adjust those. And this has your edit stuff. And you'll see right now, since I'm not in UV stuff, it's got auto mirror, copy and paste stuff. But you'll notice there's kind of this little V right over here. It's kind of right next to the little magnifying glass. And if I click on that, you'll notice that it has Magic UV stuff, and it's got text tools. And what's cool about text tools is not only do you have these cool baking options, so if I open this up, I can bake normal maps that easily. You basically pick your resolution up here for your map, click on this, it'll bake your tangent normal map from your single object, right? Although you could do multiple objects with it as well. But if you click on this, there's all these other map types you can actually bake, which is really cool. We're not going to have to worry about these in this project, but if you want to paint a mask for the bevels you've done on your model, you can. If you want to bake one for roughness for a surface, different kinds of normal maps, like object space normal maps, kind of cool ambient occlusion. So it's kind of neat how you get this neat little baking function there, which we'll take advantage of a little later on this project and for future projects. But what's cool, though, is you can go right up here to size. And you could, of course, type in your own number, but you can also just click on here and get a preset, like, say, 2048, right? And this will be set up for whatever map you're going to use from here on in. You can change it, so if you want to make it higher, you can. And what you can do is you can click on what's called checker map here. What that does is that automatically, at this resolution of 2048, when it catches up, creates a distortion grid map for you and sets the preview on. So that's kind of neat, right? It's we know it's not that hard to do it normally through kind of, our red ball here, and in fact, you'll see it really just does that process for you, right? It's doing basically the same thing. It just automates it. It's just a little quicker. So text tools I found is neat because it gives you some, it gives you the ability to do the distortion grid and the baking a bit easier, right? It's not that hard to do it vanilla Blender without the add-on, but it does cause take a step or two out, which is nice. So a little bit easier to kind of get you set up for that. And you can see, of course, that this is pretty bad, right? That's not what we're looking for UVs, right? We want the distortion grid to look pretty checkerboard. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go to 3 for face mode. So I'm in face mode. And you'll see that the UVs are really quite bad, right? And you'll now see that when you're in a different selection mode, you get more options, right? So sometimes you'll see less, and that's because you're in object mode. So there's not much you can do in object mode except auto mirror. Maybe like some of the UV stuff, like copy and paste. But now that I'm in face mode, loop tools, mesh tools are available, auto mirror is available, but also UV mapping is, right? And in there is that UVW checkbox. And you'll see that you can do a best planar. So for, like, say, this is just the two faces, I can do a best planar, and you'll see what it really does is it just kind of sets that to be a planar projection for that top, right? If I wanted to select, say, this one here and do a best planar, it'll do the same thing, right? It'll kind of do a planar projection for the best fit. So you do have your best fit planar projection right here with UVW. But of course, if I hit Control A, it will select everything. And we see there's box, right? And I showed this yesterday. That's in the videos from yesterday, but we have to see this a couple times on models. So I'm going to do it a couple more times so we've got a couple of video options for it. And I hit box. And you see what this basically does is it does a bunch of best fit planers for the ceiling, the floors, the walls, all that stuff. Now in this case, it's not packed within that main quadrant, which we want it to be. So that's where in the UV editor, you can just do Control A again, right? Remember, Control A is your quickie for select all, and that works here and it works here. And we can go to the UV menu there, right? So there's this UV menu up here. And you see that you can just do what's called either pack UV or pack islands. They basically work the same, right? And this just packs those all to fit within that quadrant. And you'll see that they're really just, these little shells. If I hit 4, remember in UV editor mode, 4 is your kind of island select, right? So you can select those, move, rotate, and scale them, all that stuff. But now you can see we've got a pretty good, pretty low distortion UV unwrap on that, right? So that's what's cool about this box map is for stuff that's pretty boxy like this, it's a great option. Could you technically unfold these things or parts of them if you wanted to, just by selecting seams and hitting unfold? Yes. But when you're dealing with very geometric stuff, rooms, buildings, desks, these kinds of things can be kind of neat to do. All right, so that's kind of that one, right? I just kind of want to really just show you guys how to do the checker map again in a full video, kind of remind you guys how to do those things, turn them on, box map there. So in this case, I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to open something else. I think I'm going to open the chair. Let's see, where's the chair? Chair. There it is. All right. So there's our chair. And of course, we go to UV editing for it. I'm going to make sure there's no modifiers. There's not. Good. All right. And of course, we have two objects, our handrails and our cushions. We can always combine those into one if we wanted to as well. Just to make it a little easier for importing later on. So we select both, right-click, join. In this case, we actually did have a modifier for this one. So maybe undo that, Control-Z, click on that. And remember, you can just click on this guy to apply. Now, if you have the modifier add-on, right? There's an add-on called modifiers in Blender. It comes with it. You get things like apply all, delete all, which is kind of cool, right? And then I can select both, right-click, join. Now they're one object. And what I could do is I could go in here and I could actually do my own UV unwrapping on this, right? So I'll go to the orange triangle, so I can go to UV maps, and we'll just kind of call this chair, right? You just double click on it to give it a name. It'd be good if I was actually calling it chair. There we go. And now, of course, what I could do is I could open this up, right? Our little V pointing to the left. So I can click on that. Edit. And in this case, I'm not in our full mode yet, right? So, and I can always bring up this little V right here. So we get our text tools. I'll pick this to be, 2048. Do the quick checker map. There we go. We get our distortion grid on there. And you can see how it's pretty bad in certain areas. So even before you start, you can see kind of what this is going to be like without a proper UV unwrap. It's not going to be good. The texture is just not going to look nice on the model. Now in this case, turn perspective off. In this case, what I want to do now is I want to go to 3 for face mode. And I'm going to select linked for these guys, right? So remember, right bracket is select linked. So you can select linked. Because I want to do an automatic map for the armrests, but a normal unfold for the cushions. So even though they're one object, we could still do that. So I go to UV mapping. Because remember, I just clicked on that triangle to open this up. If you want to close it back down, right, you just drag it in. It's a little V, kind of open it. So I open the UV mapping, UVW. Remember, you want to make sure all 3 add-ons are turned on. UV layout, which is usually on by default. UV magic, which isn't, but it comes with Blender, so you just turn it on. And then, of course, you download text tools just by doing the text tools Blender search and install. And I'm just going to do box on that. All right. And that actually gives us a pretty good starting point for those. Now, I'm not worried about those being packed yet, but you can see that they're low distortion, pretty well unwrapped. They're just not packed properly, right? Because they're overlapping a little bit. They're not fitting inside this main quadrant, which is what our texture is going to be painted to fit later on. But I still have to do more unfolding. So this is where I just go to 2 for edge mode, right? And I double click on this edge loop. And then I can shift double left click, which by the way is your quiz today, is what is the select edge loop shortcut key, and that is particularly for industry compatible, double left click, right? And I'll just shift double left click for that one, right? So you notice we're putting these seams on these cushions kind of like they would be, not kind of, like they would be on a pillow or a cushion, right? Look at your actual chair cushions or pillows and look at where they put the seams at. That's where your seam should go, right? Just like when we unwrapped our crab, we kind of based it on clothing, right? People that didn't do 3D, that in fact before computers were invented, figured out where to put seams on things, right? So when we do seams, we basically look at where seams have been put on fabric and things like that from upholsterers and clothing makers for centuries. Now, of course, we right-click in edge mode so that we can mark seam, right? And then you'll see those become red, which indicates that those are seams, and they can be unfolded based on it. So now I go to 3 for face mode again, and I'm going to select a single polygon in each of these cushions, and then I'm going to select my right bracket, right? Remember, select menu, select linked, it's right bracket by default, and that selects just the linked. You'll notice, though, that this actually obeys the seam itself, which is actually kind of neat, right? So you might want to make sure to just go back in and just select linked for all of those. But it is kind of cool that it does respect the seam as well. And now what we can do is we can go in here to UV menu, right? And we can unwrap. And there is that unwrap. Now if I hit Control A, right, particularly if I do it in this viewport, so I move my cursor back over to the 3D viewport, Control A, all of your UVs are there. Remember, Blender by default only shows what's selected though. And I can hit Control A in here to select everything. Remember, Control A is your quick key for select all. It's actually at the very top of the select menu. Select all, Control A, right? And Blender's pretty good about having those be consistent all over the place. And then we go to UV. You could do pack. Where are you at? Pack islands. And that just kind of resizes those to fit. Now, in this case, you'll notice that these are a bit small, right? So one of the things that you can actually do is open up the UV layout and text tools, and there is something called get textile size. So you just click on it, and it kind of fits it. And then what we could do is we could actually kind of repack these. And you can always try pack UV as well, and you see how it kind of does it with the proper size. So sometimes you have to consider what the sizes are, right? And you will see that pack, there it is. Pack islands and pack UV basically do the same thing. Sometimes though you just need to do, particularly with text tools, kind of figure out the textile size. That's the texture element. Although technically if you do average island scale, that'll kind of do something pretty similar. But initially with my pack, you'll notice it kind of made the cushions way too small, right? So do be aware of that. Sometimes when you pack, it packs everything so not overlapping, they're fitting in here, but some parts might be too small. And that's where textile density is kind of cool, or some of these other options. Remember, pack relays your UVs out, right? And now we've got a pretty good one for that chair cushion. I'm going to do one last one before I let you guys go. So I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to grab the mainframe because it's got pipes, and I wanted to show some stuff on the pipes. Kind of I demoed it the other day, but I wanted to kind of demo it again here now. So I'm going to go for object mode. And remember, these have modifiers. So if you don't have this on, right, you can just go to the little V here, apply. If you have multiple, that apply all can be kind of neat. And then I can select both, right-click join and make them one object. UV editing. And of course, like we did before, I could easily just kind of open this up. And open this one up to get all my tools. Text tools, it's right down here. Pick that nice kind of resolution of 2048, set checker map for preview. I'll go to UV maps here just to call this mainframe. So remember that green triangle gives you that, kind of towards the bottom here. Remember that's also where you can go to normals to turn that auto smooth stuff on, right? So your UV map ability to name your